Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. I know there's going to be a lot of great information that you're going to be hopefully able to use during your daily activities in your daily life, especially now as you transition into either starting your college journey or continuing your college journey. Just a couple of reminders on webinar etiquette. Remember, this is a professional environment. We invite you to share any comments, any resources, any tips that you want to share with your peers as well. We want to have a conversation with you all, and all we ask is that we're respectful of each other. And with that said, today is Sleep, Nutrition, and Exercise. And we're going to have our guest speaker for today, Regina. She actually did a presentation for another one of our programs recently. And I got to say, I learned some new things that I didn't know before entering the presentation, and some things that I was doing that I didn't understand were impacting even the way that I sleep, the way that I rest, and that I now am more conscious about. So I invite you to pay some attention to some of the tips and some of the advice that she's going to share, and, start to implement the ones that work for you. So with that said, I want to welcome Regina.
Well, thank you, Fatima. And I think you brought up a really important thing, and it's just awareness, and I think we just all the time are just trying to be more aware of how the things that we do, our lifestyle choices, impact how we feel, the energy we have, the motivation, our mood, all of these things are impacted by the choices we make. And it just takes time. I know when I was going into college, there's so many things. I'm even, my son is 18 and he's just getting into college. And so even just navigating the website of the college and trying to figure out, how to register and all those things that were super challenging. So I'm so grateful that we have an organization like OneFuture Coachella Valley to help you guys navigate through all of that. All right, so kind of foundations of wellness, right? How self-care nourishes our roots. So a little bit about me. So I am a first generation American. My parents immigrated from Spain in the early 70s. We immigrated to a small resort town. So kind of like our valley, very seasonal, in Ketchum, Idaho, which is kind of in the middle of South Central in the state of Idaho in the Northwest. You can see that picture there on the left. That's myself and my dad and my mom and my little brother in front of our 1955 Ford station wagon, which was very embarrassing to me as a kid riding around in that. I can appreciate that now, since my parents, have been very successful in becoming Americans and living the American dream. So I'm grateful for them being brave and coming to the US. But the thing about our small town was that we were the only people that spoke Spanish in the whole town. So we had to, learn English. My parents, had to really get into the culture and sort of learn English right off the bat. And so, and they've done, really well with that. And so I'm super proud of them and everything that they've done. The picture in the middle there, that was me when I was about 12 or 14 years old. And then the picture on the right is me probably at 17, kind of with this like annoyed look on my face that, that I had to get this picture taken. And I think a lot of that kind of goes along with, maybe the way I was eating during those years. When I was younger, I was eating really well and I was eating whatever my parents gave me. And then when I was kind of, going into when I was 15 or so, I was playing volleyball and traveling with the team. And so I really didn't want to eat all the foods that my parents were giving me, all the healthy, good stuff they were feeding me. So I was eating more fast food and probably not sleeping as much. Now that I know more, I think really what I was eating really was impacting kind of my behavior as far as being a teenager and how I felt, right? How I felt about the world and about myself. So, so today I really wanted to share with you kind of how our health, is sort of, we as humans are kind of like a tree, right? When we're growing in the earth, we are all of the earth. We share energy with the earth and we're all energetic beings and we share oxygen, right? We share everything on this planet as humans and animals. So we're like trees, and what we feed ourselves is the soil that kind of feeds our roots. And we have these three roots, kind of many branches that can impact our health, right? As far as disease goes. And so you've got here in the blue circle, you've got the genes, you've got the inflammation in the pink circle, and then you've got digestion. So those are the three roots. And then the circles around are the circle of influence. So those are the things that influence those roots of our tree. So, we may have, a genetic propensity for certain things that run in families. We may have, issues with digestion, maybe based on, on some somewhat genetic things. You can see these rings overlap. So our genes influence our digestion, our genes influence our inflammation in our body, our digestion influences all of those. So those all influence each other. Our environment, how much we move, what we feed our soil, that all impacts our health. So when we're having, health issues, we really want to see what are we doing to nourish the soil, because maybe we have an issue with our energy, or maybe we have an issue, even with something like acne. Well, we can try and treat it from the outside in, but it's really going to help us, more to treat it from the inside out. So, so what are we eating? Are we eating, a lot of processed carbohydrates, like things made with flour and sugar, and those sorts of things impact our hormones, and our hormones impact how much oil our glands make. And if our glands are making a lot of oil, which happens during puberty, right? During puberty, that's when when our bodies start to change. That's when those hormones start to really amp up. And that's why, at that time of life, we tend to start to get acne and things like that, because our hormones are creating more oil in our glands, and those glands are getting clogged, and that's causing things like acne. So by controlling, how much sugar and better quality foods that we eat, that way we can actually balance our hormones well, so we don't overstimulate that hormone of testosterone, which causes that secretion. So everything's connected. So that's really what I'm going to try and show you in this presentation, that maybe one lifestyle choice that we're making is really impacting a lot of other areas in our life that we didn't really think about. The example I'm going to use is tiredness, because I know that fatigue is often a complaint of young adults. They're doing a lot of things. They've got school, they've got family, they've got activities to do, they've got work oftentimes. And so being tired is just sort of kind of common, it seems. And I know that sleep is a toughie. I mean, I can't imagine growing up with a smartphone and social media and things like that. We didn't have that when we were kids. So we didn't have those things pulling us at night, like keeping us late, scrolling and doing those sorts of things. But I want to show you here that, maybe we need to put some things into place, maybe make some, rules for ourselves, so that we can help put self-care as paramount. In the center of this, you'll see poor sleep, right? So say, one night you stay up really late because you have a project to do, and then you've got to get up early. So you have a poor night of sleep. And if you have a poor night of sleep, right, the next day you have very little motivation. You can barely get yourself through the day and just do the minimum of what you have to do. Maybe go to class, go to work, and eat whatever's in front of you. You don't have a lot of energy to make good decisions. So we kind of start to make poor food choices because we're tired, and we want, when you're tired, what feels good? Something that's comforting and that's going to make you feel good. So, do vegetables sound good? Not necessarily, right? Burger, fries, all of those things. Not that those things you can't have from time to time, but if this becomes sort of a pattern, then that can be an issue. The other thing that happens when we get poor sleep is those hormones that I was talking about, especially our blood sugar, does not get managed very well if we don't have good sleep. So our blood sugar will be more sensitive, and we'll have more spikes in our blood sugar and bigger crashes, right? So that impacts our tiredness. So with sugar, we get a spike in energy, and then we get kind of a big crash. And then what happens when we get the big crash is usually we're looking something to pick us up, and we do something else that's going to make our blood sugar spike, and then there's another bigger crash. So having poor sleep just kind of sets us up for this, these things that happen. We end up being more stressed because we're just not as motivated, and we have these things to do. And then, it also with mood, it's a huge influence on our mood. And then we don't tend to be outside, right? When we're tired, we don't really want to be outside. So we don't get some sunlight and nature, and then we move, we don't move very much. So you can see how this is sort of like a domino effect of just, not getting enough sleep. And all of these things, right? Increased stress, poor food choices, minimal movement, all of those things impact inflammation. And what we know now is that most illnesses or diseases are impacted by inflammation. And so we all sort of have what I call a weakest link in our families. Some of us maybe have diabetes that runs in our families. Some of us maybe have arthritis or joint issues, skin issues, those sorts of things. Sometimes those are more about patterns of self-care or lack of self-care than they are necessarily genetic, although there's probably a genetic component there as well. But like I mentioned, right, the 3 roots, many branches, we've got our genes, but we have a lot of control as far as our environment and the choices that we make. So you can see here, movement and mindset, even as far as digestion, chewing your food, right? Mechanically chewing your food, actually smelling your food stimulates the initial stimulus of digestion, and that starts to get digestive juices flowing. And then chewing our food well, right? When we're busy and in a hurry, oftentimes it's like a couple of bites and then we swallow. We don't chew our food extremely well. And so then our body has a harder time absorbing nutrients from our food because we're not spending the time to actually chew our food well enough so that our body can get all the nutrients out of the food. So, how do we get better and more sleep? So things like, trying to get up at the same time most days. And so sometimes just the way you set up your college schedule can be helpful. So maybe like Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, you have earlier classes. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you try and have classes later so that you have a little bit more time to sleep in. And then you have those 2 weekend days, depending on your schedule. Trying to avoid caffeine, coffee, tea, soda, energy drinks after 3, because we all metabolize caffeine differently. And so it may be preventing you from getting sleepy at night. And I know that sounds like a good thing, but if that really keeps you up super late, then that isn't, we actually get the best quality of sleep if we go to bed before midnight. And the hours before midnight are worth twice as much as the hours after midnight. And I know this myself, absolutely, that it's true, but I'm a true night owl and I have a really difficult time getting myself to bed. So I'm not a good napper, but if you can take a little quick cat nap, that's definitely a way to catch up on some sleep. One thing that I do is I try and unplug earlier. So at least like an hour and a half before bed, I set an alarm on my phone that's like get ready to sleep alarm, to kind of make sure that I get my nighttime routine going so that I try and get myself into bed at a decent hour. And then I really enjoy reading like a good book, not a great book, because that will just keep you up. But anyway, so, trying to get myself ready to go to bed. And then movement, research shows that people sleep significantly better and more if they get at least 150 minutes of exercise a week, which is about, 20 minutes a day. And that I put movement down instead of exercise because walking counts. People really dismiss walking because they think, oh, I'm not sweating and I'm not breathing hard. And really, walking helps with our hormones more so than it does necessarily with burning calories. But the hormones that we release impacts the calories that our body burns. So for example, carbohydrates are the body's preferred source of energy. So when we feed ourselves carbs, so, bread, pasta, rice, even fruits and vegetables are carbs, but the bread and the pasta, they're more processed. But when we eat those, our body's like, great, I'll just use this for energy. If we give our body a more balanced, meal with some protein and some fat and some carbohydrates, our blood sugar stays more even, right? If we just eat the carbs, we get a spike in blood sugar and our body just uses that for fuel. It can also increase inflammation, which is going to increase cortisol. So if we drank a big Coke, for example, that would spike our blood sugar. Our body would get stressed. It would think, oh gosh, I got to get away from the tiger. And so it's going to use more sugar for fuel. Whereas if we have a more balanced meal, the sugar enters the blood more slowly, and then our body just kind of uses what it needs, stores what it doesn't, and then our body will actually more likely use fat for fuel instead of just relying on that sugar. So if we can keep our blood sugar more balanced, our body's metabolism is going to work better. And then yoga, right? So doing yoga before bed, helps people fall asleep more easily. There's something called yoga nidra that can be really helpful for sleep. Even just deep breathing exercises, maybe reading one of your textbooks might put you to sleep. I mean, anything that helps you kind of get sleepy and doesn't inspire you to stay up too late. Tips that I use to kind of behave, right? So things like trying to keep my energy and my blood sugar steady. So this was really a thing that really helped me. And I really didn't start this until I probably moved to the desert and started my first job, because I know there's a lot of conflicting information out there about nutrition. What's the best thing? Is it paleo? Is it vegan? Is it all these different things? And you really just have to figure out what works best for you. I know the vegan thing is very popular right now, and I totally understand why, as far as, people have ethical reasons for, maybe not wanting to eat animal foods and different ideas like that. And definitely we all need to eat more plants for sure. So I definitely see why people want to do that. But protein is vital. Protein is vital for detoxification. It's vital for just getting our bodies to function properly. And animal protein is really nutrient dense. So we don't have to be as, we can be a little lazier with our diets if we do eat animal proteins. If we don't, we have to be a little bit more, especially if you're going to be vegan, you definitely want to talk to somebody about how to set up what you're eating so that you're getting all the nutrients that you need. So trying to keep your blood sugar steady is super important. Eating some sort of protein first thing in the morning and with every meal and snack. So protein helps satiate us, meaning that it helps us feel like we ate something and it keeps us full. And then the amino acids in proteins get broken down into things like serotonin, and they support serotonin, which helps our brain feel good. Those amino acids get rebuilt into our body into muscle and other enzymes that our body needs to function. So protein is super important. And having that, a real balanced meal as your first meal can help set the tone for your whole day. So here, make sure you have protein with every meal and snack, and I'll give you some meal examples, but you really want to eat just colorful fruits and veggies as close to the way Mother Nature made them as possible. And try not to bring the enemy into the house, snacks. The issue with snacks is if we have a lot of snacks around, then myself included, I get lazy and I don't want to feed myself real food, right? Because real food, oh gosh, you'd have to prepare that. And that's a lot of work. And who wants to do that? And I hear you, because I feel that way a lot. So if I don't have a lot of snacks around, especially ones that I don't behave with, then I'm much more apt to just do better and eat real food instead of eating snacks. So, and it's not that you can't have, from time to time, or even once a day, have some sort of treat or snack. I really believe in the 80-20 rule, which is 80% of the time trying to eat well and 20% of the time, yes, have what you want. But trying not to bring those things that you just have a hard time controlling yourself with in the house. Like for me, like chocolate covered almonds. I mean, I can have chocolate in the house, I can have almonds in the house, but together I'll eat that container in a couple of days. And then I won't eat my vegetables, right? Because I'm eating chocolate covered almonds. So trying to not bring things that you have a hard time not eating a lot of, having those around easy. And then planning what you're going to eat ahead of time. Even if all you do was plan and make sure you have a good breakfast every day, and that's the only meal you plan, that's going to make a huge difference, because like I said, that sets the tone for your day. Try not to drink your calories, especially on an empty stomach. Like I mentioned, drinking anything with calories, from soda, even if it's sweetened green tea, if it's got quite a bit of sugar in it. Orange juice, that's definitely a staple in most people's homes. And starting out the day with a big glass of orange juice sounds refreshing and amazing, but it is sugar and it will just spike your blood sugar. Having an orange is another story. The fiber gives an orange structure. So one orange isn't going to be a big issue on your blood sugar, but it takes 4 or 5 oranges, or depending on the size of your orange juice, a lot more oranges to get a glass of juice. And then there's no fiber there. So it tends to spike up our blood sugar. It's definitely nutritious, for sure. You're getting nutrients from orange juice, but it's going to set your blood sugar off for the rest of the day. And then it's going to be sort of like having cravings and having drops in energy. And so we really want to try and keep, our blood sugar super even throughout the day. And then water, obviously you guys we're there in the desert and it's super warm. And so, drinking about half your body weight in ounces of water a day is great. If you sweat a lot and you do a lot of, you're active, or you ride your bike from place to place or walk or what have you, you might even just Gatorade isn't great because, again, there's a lot of colors and additives in that, and it really doesn't have the best balance of electrolytes. The electrolyte we lose the most is sodium, but sodium doesn't taste very good. So usually Gatorade, the Gatorade company isn't putting enough sodium in there because they want people to like the taste. So if you don't mind, salty water, right? It couldn't hurt if you sweat a lot to put like a half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon, in 32 ounces of water, and just kind of have that throughout the day. You could sweeten it with, you could add like some oranges or lemon or something to your water to give it some flavor. If you're used to sweeter things, you could use something like stevia. It's a sweetener that's extracted from the leaves of a bush, and it has some sweetening that you could use to sweeten your beverages, but really trying to avoid drinking your calories. So here's kind of what a healthy plate should sort of look like. Here we've got water and tea, and I want to touch on tea, even coffee a little bit. Those are big sources of antioxidants. A cup of coffee or 2 cups of coffee during the day is not a big deal. Green tea is really great for its health benefits as well as for your metabolism. The only issue with this is the caffeine, and then what people put in their coffee. So if you're going and you're getting, things like frappuccinos or things that have a lot of sweetening to them, then again, that's drinking your calories, and it's not going to be great for your blood sugar. And your energy may feel good with the caffeine for a little while, but then you'll probably crash soon after. So just being, kind of mindful of that. And so these are some ideas of, starchy carbohydrates. So like a quarter of your plate. And these serving sizes are kind of pretty modest here. So, if you're a bigger person, you're probably going to need more than this, but, you can always start with this and see if it works for you. And then proteins, which we talked about, 3 to 6 ounces. So, if we want to use our hands, which we always have them with us, so that kind of makes it easy. If you're a bigger person, you're going to have bigger hands. So that'll just kind of help you with the portions. But so for starchy carbohydrates, like a fist at every meal, right? Which might be half a cup to a cup, or 1 slice of bread, 1 to 2 slices of bread, depending on your body size, right? Proteins, 3 to 6 ounces. So like a palm size, right? Maybe for smaller people, like, my size, I'm about 5'2" and 120 or so. And then for big, if you're bigger, then, couple palm sizes. If you're a really big guy, you might need, 3 palm sizes of protein at a meal. And then lots of non-starchy veggies. So those are unlimited, as many as you like, because that gives us fiber, and it also has a lot of water. So vegetables and even fruit are super hydrating. So making sure that you get lots of color and you eat the rainbow. And then fats. When I was growing up, fats were the enemy, right? Like, you shouldn't eat fat. Fat made you fat. And what we realized is that was not true. There was a bunch of bad science that came out, and really carbohydrates, overdoing the simple carbohydrates and the sugar is the problem. So fats are super important. Every cell in our body is made of fat. I'm sure you've all taken some sort of cell biology class, but the ring that encompasses our cells is made of phospholipids, and those are fats. And they have a lot of important functions. They allow housekeeping to happen properly. They allow hormones to attach and do different actions within the cell. So fats are super important, and we want to make sure that we're eating healthy fats. And that's one of the issues with processed foods and eating out, is that oftentimes the fats that they use are not healthy, because everyone's trying to make a profit and they want things to taste good. So using like plainer oils like corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, those oils are more inflammatory to the body. And so we really want to avoid those oils. So if you're buying oils for your home, or if you're looking at a label and you're looking for oils that are healthy, the ones here on the slide are your better options. So, olive oil, avocado oil is great now. It withstands high temperature cooking, and you can pretty much find it everywhere. You can even, find it in sprays and different things. Coconut oil is kind of a neat oil. It's high in something called MCT, or medium chain triglycerides. And some of you may have heard of something called bulletproof coffee, which is they actually use some coconut oil in the coffee, and then even some grass-fed butter. And so that actually, the MCT oil, the coconut oil, actually gives us a little boost of energy without impacting our blood sugar. So it kind of works like carbohydrates, but without spiking our blood sugar. So that's kind of a nice oil to use, like maybe in the morning if you're making a smoothie, that could be some fat in your smoothie, or even like putting some avocado in your smoothie too can add some healthy fats and fiber. And avocado has lots of fiber. So that too can be a great source of fat. So some suggestions on, how to eat. So trying to eat slow, even just taking smelling the food, being grateful for the food, all of those things help stimulate digestion, which is going to help with absorption of the nutrients from what you're eating, right? And that's nourishing our soil, right? If we go back to our tree, eating nourishing foods, and eating them, mechanically breaking them down better ourselves is going to nourish our soil, making your plate colorful, right? The more variety we eat, the better. So kind of eating from the rainbow. And here I've got, 9 to 18 servings of veggies. And I know that sounds like a lot. And it just depends on the person. If you're a really healthy person that, you don't seem to have any health issues and you're okay, you could be okay with just the 9 servings. And that's considered a half a cup cooked or 1 cup raw. But if you have a lot of health problems, you struggle with inflammation, pain, fatigue, or even mood issues, more vegetables can make a huge difference as far as how you feel. So you might consider trying to add more vegetables, if you're struggling with some things. And I do want to say that sometimes people feel worse when they eat vegetables. So if you aren't used to eating a lot of vegetables, maybe make sure that they're steamed. And, steamed vegetables, they don't have to be boring and just completely steamed. I mean, you can steam them and then you could saute them in a little bit of oil with some herbs and spices. Herbs and spices, by the way, are amazing as well. They give you all kinds of nutrients. And that's something quick and easy, that you can do. Sometimes if I'm in a hurry, like a half an avocado with, sprinkled with some tahini, or, even, just a little bit of salt with an egg inside or something, that can be like a quick meal, right? If I'm in a hurry. So as far as veggies, if they don't make you feel very well, you might just make sure that they're cooked. And then if you still really struggle with vegetables, it still might be worth, you'll get my information. So if you're struggling with those sorts of things, feel free to reach out to somebody at OneFuture and they can get you in contact with me. And I'm happy to, answer any questions for you. But if there's something that's not agreeing with you, right? Like at the beginning, I said, you have to figure out what works for you and how you feel best. And so sometimes salads maybe don't make you feel very good, or certain vegetables give you gas or whatever, that's just you being aware of how that food is impacting your body. So it doesn't mean that you should go back to McDonald's or whatever you were eating before just to play it safe. It might just mean that you need some more information. So, I'm always here as a resource if you guys need any of that. So we talked about choosing mostly whole foods, with minimal processing, trying to use smaller or larger plates, right? So our plate size actually helps us with portions. So if we, for example, serve ourselves this plate that you see here, if we serve 1 portion of protein, veggies, and we serve it on a big plate, like a 12 or 14-inch plate, and we put those proper servings on that big plate, our brain thinks deprivation. Our brain thinks that that's not enough food. But if you take the same portions and you put it on a smaller plate and it fills up the whole space, then your brain actually goes, that's enough, right? So that's something that you can try to serve yourself more like on a salad sized plate than some of these big dinner plates. Same thing with a treat, like say ice cream, for example, right? If you want ice cream, if you serve yourself ice cream in like a small little cup in a little ramekin, and it fills the whole cup, and maybe you put a few nuts and a little fruit on it, your brain goes, wow, that's okay. But if you serve that same portion in a big bowl, your brain's like, sorry, that's not enough. And then you just put more in, right? So all of these little tricks can help you sort of, stay on track without feeling, like you're depriving yourself if weight is an issue and you're concerned about that. So here's some meal examples. This is probably, a smoothie is definitely my favorite meal as far as, because I tend to like sweet things. And so this is sort of like getting dessert, but I'm making a meal out of it. So that's why I tend to kind of like smoothies. And you can put a lot of nutrition in a small space, and they're quick to drink. You can make them ahead of time. So what I often do is, you'll see here in this recipe, so we've got a small banana, so that's going to be some fruit and some carbs. You've got a cup of unsweetened almond milk, and almond milk is mostly the calories come from fat. So you've got some healthy fat there. Or you could use some coffee, right? If you like a mocha type of a thing, then you could, use cold coffee as your liquid. And that doesn't have any calories if it's plain, and it's got lots of antioxidants. A serving of some sort of protein powder. And so you could do a chocolate protein powder here, and it would be kind of like a chocolate banana coffee sort of mocha-ish sort of shake. I put vegetarian protein powder down here, because most people tolerate that. So there's forms of pea protein. One protein company that I like is called Orgain. It's Orgain, and they make some different protein powders. I know they sell stuff at Costco, and you can find it in most places, but a protein serving, right? Usually it tells you on the side, it says, this is how much a serving is. This is how many grams of protein you get. I usually go for about 20 or so, 22 grams of protein in my smoothie. And then you're going to get some proteins from some other things that you're putting in the smoothie. If you're a bigger person, if you're closer to 200 pounds, you might need more like 2 scoops of protein powder or a scoop and a half. And that's something that you're just going to have to play with. And then, a tablespoon of flaxseed meal, seeds that you grind up, and they're actually high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory fats that help, with our mood, and they just help, right? All those things that we talked about earlier, they help with inflammation. If it helps with inflammation, it helps with your health. Also full of fiber, right? Some flaxseed can be nice to add some fiber, and it adds some, some texture to your smoothie. And then if you like peanut butter, you could use a powdered peanut butter, or you could just use, like a regular peanut butter. One thing I do want to say about peanut butters is a lot of the peanut butters can have a lot of different ingredients in them, and you want to keep your ingredient list short. So for peanut butter, you'd like it to just say peanuts and salt, right? Pretty much those 2 things, not added sugar or high fructose corn syrup or, hydrogenated oils. You really kind of want to avoid those because they're really not good for our health. They're not great for the soil. So we want to try and avoid those. So I did mention earlier, like, how do you know if a meal is going to work for you, right? And so if it works for you, it's satiating, meaning it fills you up and you're not hungry for maybe, 3-4 hours. That's a really great meal if you don't think about food for, 3 hours. Did it give you energy, or did it make you feel like really tired, right? So that's something to be aware of. You want things that, or just keeps you even, right? You don't even need a big boost, just something that keeps you even, you feel good, you can focus. And then also, is it satisfying, right? Because there's satiation, right, which makes us feel full, but there's also satisfaction, right? We want to enjoy what we're eating. You don't want to be, miserable by the food that you're eating, right? And so sometimes it takes some time for us, how I eat now isn't how I ate when I was your age, or even how I ate, 10 years ago. So how you eat just sort of slowly over time, you keep what works, you let go of what doesn't work, and you just kind of keep adapting as you're more aware, right, of what's going on. So is your hunger managed? Is your energy good? Are your cravings managed, right? So if you're not eating foods that satisfy, your brain and that you're happy with, you may find yourself craving things, right? And so what can you do for cravings, right? If sometimes in the afternoon you're craving something sweet. I personally crave something sweet, I think, after every meal. And the best time to eat that sort of sweet treat is right after you've eaten, because then it gets mixed in with all the proteins and the carbohydrates and the fats so that it doesn't spike your blood sugar. So instead of eating dinner and then having your ice cream, right, like a couple hours after dinner, it's better to just have that little treat right with your meal, because then it doesn't tend to spike your blood sugar as much. So if you can have your treat, right after, that's going to help as far as how it impacts your blood sugar. You can see with these meals, right, we've got some protein, we've got some fiber, we've got some healthy fat, we've got some quality carbohydrates. So for the most part, the meals that you eat, you want them to be really nourishing, right? You want all of those foods to count. So even like we talked about tea earlier a little bit, teas are a great way to add nutrients, to your water. There may be 3 cents a serving, when it comes to making tea. I know it takes a little bit of time, but tea is something that you can just make a big pitcher of, put it in the refrigerator, and then, fill up your water bottle or something with it to have throughout the day if you want some tea. But it comes from plants. So it's, again, another really nourishing substance that you can have. You can even add a little bit of stevia to it if you want something flavored and you're not a big water fan. So my son actually just takes a tea bag and puts it in, in his water and fills it up and, uses that kind of throughout the day. So that's the way to do that. And then progress, not perfection. I just, this chart is sort of silly as far as how it works, but we're going to have peaks and we're going to have valleys, and there's going to be times when we're doing really well, and then something's going to happen and we're going to fall off our routine a little bit. What matters most is that you just get back on. If you go on vacation, enjoy your vacation. Usually if people are on vacation, they're a little less stressed, or, just enjoy yourself, but then just get right back on the plan when you get home, because you want to make lifestyle changes that you can manage. If you change everything all at once, you may keep that up for a week or two, and then the rest of your life explodes. And then you're like, wow, I can't do that. And then you go back to doing what you did before. So it's really important to just make small changes, right? Even if it's just saying, hey, I'm going to really focus on, like I said, trying to go to bed a little bit earlier, even if it's just a half an hour earlier than what you're currently doing, and then just work on that for a while. And trying to, sometimes if I have a book that I like, it's like that kind of makes me want to go to bed, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to read my book before I get to go to bed. So trying to pair things that maybe you don't like to do with things that you do like to do, so that you're more likely to, to kind of behave, or, you forget taking a supplement, or you forget taking a medication or something. It's like, if you put it next to your toothbrush, you might be more likely to take it. Or if you set them next to your computer, you're more likely to do it. Or even just having things sitting out on the counter, right? Having things that you want to eat sitting out on the counter versus things that maybe, it's hard with like grandma's like candy jar or whatever, that might be there all the time. That's tempting. So just be kind to yourself, don't beat yourself up over this, pick something little that you want to work on, and then just, plan it, put it in your calendar like it's a very important appointment. Schedule your sleep, even put it in Google Calendar. I'm going to be in bed from 10:30 to whatever time, or, put that in your calendar so it's always there on your mind. So, when I was a teenager, I loved McDonald's, and I, wanted that compared to what my mom used to make me. I apologize for this photo. I'm not a food photographer, but then again, this is real life, right? This might be my dinner, which is a burger. I try and make sure that the meat is good quality. I shop at Trader Joe's. They have grass-fed, burgers at Trader Joe's. So I'll just get a burger. It's on a bed of arugula, which is a great green, because it's kind of like helps with detox and, has all kinds of good nutrients in it. And then green beans that I just sauteed, in a little olive oil with some garlic. And then I made some sweet potato fries in the oven. So, that was kind of a easy meal. And I always make extra. So I'll just make extra burgers so that for the next day I have lunch or I've got dinner. So if you're cooking, you may as well cook extra, because then you don't have to cook again.